All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday Yoga Teacher Talk with Yoga Teachers of Colorado. And I'm really excited for today's talk. We're meeting with Amanda McKinney about how to get more butts on mats. This is a serious problem for a lot of yoga teachers. We're always looking to fill our classes. So how do I get more students in my classes? This is one of the most common questions among yoga teachers. And in this Facebook Live, we're going to talk about it. Amanda McKinney is a marketing coach for yoga teachers whose passion is to help yoga teachers earn more money. And this is often happening by getting more butts on mats. Today, she's going to share the 3 questions you have to answer to fill your classes with your dream students on a consistent basis. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We are very excited to have you. So and just so everyone knows, I've personally worked with Amanda quite a bit recently, and she is fantastic. She's consistently helping me narrow down my niche and my marketing message. And so I'm just really, really excited to have you on here. I know you're going to share so much wealth with us.
Oh, thank you. It's been so fun working with you, and I'm excited to just talk about this today. So you want me to just jump right in?
I think so. Go for it. You're the expert on this.
I always hesitate using that word expert because is anyone really an expert on anything? But I'll take it. I'll add that to my resume today. Perfect. And so one of the questions, I swear, it's always the first question, is really, how do I get more people in my yoga class? That's usually what yoga teachers want to know when I work with them. And the first thing that I try to get clear on to help them do that is, who is their dream student? And so that is question number 1. So Allison, you said I had 3 questions. So question number 1 is, who is your dream student? And if you don't know who that dream student is, then I want you to get clear on it. And usually about this time, I get a little resistance when I'm talking with yoga teachers, because I used to ask the question, who's your favorite student? And very quickly, I realized that was not the question to ask, because yoga teachers do not like picking favorites, like, ever. So when I decided, yes, it is remarkable how much resistance I got. So then I just started to say, okay, give me an example of one of your students. And when I would ask that question, it tells me who their favorite is, because it's the first one that pops in your mind. And it's likely the one that has been helped the most by your yoga class. And if you're at the point where you're teaching in a whole bunch of different studios and you have a lot of different classes, it still helps you figure out your favorite because you usually think of one person in one class, or if they come to a few different classes. And it just gives you the space to think, okay, that he or she came to mind first. Why is that? And it's probably because they've made a big transformation, or you've gotten really close to them, or they're similar to you in some way because yoga helped heal you in some way, so they are similar. So these are some of the ways that I've gotten a lot of yoga teachers to answer the question that they didn't want to answer, which was the favorite student, or now, as I like to say, the dream student.
I like that. Whenever you said favorite student, I was like, I don't know, but dream student does make a lot more sense. And especially the student who I not like the most, but
right. It's just the one that comes to the top of the mind really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not like you like that person.
Yeah, right. It might not be like the easiest student to teach, but it's like the student that you feel most rewarded with and on, or that you get to witness part of that journey. I think that might also kind of encapsulate. It's like, ooh, I see the challenge in how I brought this person in who wasn't necessarily automatically drawn to yoga. And now we see they are experiencing these changes and benefits in their lives. And that's exciting and really fulfilling as a teacher.
I love that. I will be using that word now. Who's the most rewarding student that you have? That is awesome. And it's another way of saying it, and it's perfectly said. I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing that, Shauna. That was awesome. Okay, so question number 2. So once you have your dream student in your mind, knowing how that student describes you and your yoga offering is really the way to get more of those people in your class. So the best way to do this is to ask them. So let's say, Allison, that I am your dream student, because why not, right? Like, I'm your dream student. So in the next class that I come to, I would encourage you to say, hey, Amanda, how do you describe this class when you tell other people about it? Or how do you describe me as a yoga teacher? And then you've got their words, because we as humans, not just yoga teachers, but just humans in general, will use our own words to describe something, but that's our perspective. But we really want our dream students' perspective, because they will use different words. Just like Allison, you and I have worked together from a marketing perspective. How you describe me is different how I describe myself. So it's helpful for me to know your words.
Yeah, that again, that makes perfect sense, because I know I describe my classes as like functional, fitness oriented, breath based, a little bit of power. And my students are like, what? That's not what we get at all. They're like, you teach us and you add a lot of modifications and we're older and we can do it. And I'm like, oh,
yes.
Okay, that's not what I thought I was doing.
See, it's just so different how that can, we just won't use the same words. It's nearly impossible unless we are our dream client, which is really hard. And even then, it's still a different perspective. It's just really helpful. And it's not hard to figure out. All you have to do is ask them how they describe your class.
Right. And I know I used to even fall into the trap of using these big, flowery yoga words. And the normal person does not understand what those mean. A vinyasa breath-based practice with Sanskrit. They're like, what? Like, what is Sanskrit? What does vinyasa mean?
Right.
So
it's true. Yeah. And it's really intimidating. It's really hard. It's, especially, it doesn't matter if you have a 200-hour level or so many different hours and trainings and certifications. The deeper that we get into training, the more disconnected we are with those words. And so even at the 200-hour level, that's the training that I have. And I still use so many yoga words that, my family who don't practice yoga are like, Amanda, I don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you're talking about. And so oftentimes you're right. We use these words thinking that everyone knows what they mean, but they really don't. And so therefore it actually creates the barrier for someone coming to our class.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm laughing at myself because I'm such a culprit. Allison, you are so much better at that than me. You just get right down to like the heart of the matter, and I still get really caught up. And she's like, maybe we could cut out a few of these words. Okay.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, I can say it actually gets easier when you use the method of talking to your dream client or your dream student, because then you just use their words. Like, it makes everything so much easier as soon as you can talk to them and then just use their words. And it seems like cheating, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah. And that can be drawn too, like from reviews, sometimes you can, I don't know. Have you had the experience of catching a student? Sometimes I'm thinking like it might catch people off guard if you're like at the end of a yoga class and you're like, tell me what you would, use to describe. Do you do it over email? Do you do it after class? Like, what would be the kind of format? Because I'm kind of processing that, thinking I might catch people off guard. Like, I'm not sure, kind of thing.
Yeah. Totally fair question. I love that you asked it, because that's the real life. Like, you're thinking, how can I apply this? And so thank you for reminding me to share that. And so one thing is, it's super easy when someone brings a friend. When someone brings a friend to class and they're like, hey, because they're excited. Hey, Shauna, I brought my friend Jessica for this class today. Ask why. Oh, why did you come here today? Usually they will use the words that their friend used to entice them to come to class. So that's a really good one. And it's before class. So fair enough saying, after class might not be great, although some students linger, as we all know. And I know we have to try and like say, like, I can only be here for 5 minutes, or else we'll be there for an hour after class talking to people. So I know we have to protect that time, but sometimes they linger and that you can ask them then. But that's one place. And it is, you can ask them over email or social media. Sometimes, actually a lot of times, so not just sometimes, a lot of the time people are resistant to type something. They're totally okay talking, but they actually like stumble over their own words. It's kind of the same thing. Like when we want to describe our class, we don't know what words to use, so we get kind of formal in our description. So I have found it to be when you're in person or over Zoom, however you work with your clients and students, to ask them when there's some face-to-face contact so they can just tell you.
Yeah, I think that's nice. Or you could even say, next time you come to class, if you have any of this feedback for me, I'd love to hear it. And give them a little bit of time to process that. I know I've done that before with some like video testimonials with students. And I've said, I really would love to video you as long as they're up for it. And then I give them like a time, you know, so it's not happening right in that moment. So they don't feel
that's great
on the spot. So I think especially if your dream student or your, you know, the student that you want to gear towards is a regular student.
Yeah.
Somebody that you're going to see again, you can be like, hey, give them a little heads up next week when you come to class. I'd love to hear this feedback from you.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's really, really good. I really like that for sure. So yeah, giving them a little bit of time to think about it is awesome. And I love that you're asking for testimonials. That just makes me so happy. so happy that you're doing that. So often I will encourage this to happen. And there's a little bit of resistance because it's uncomfortable to ask, like, hey, say something nice about me. But people are usually raving, like super excited to do that. And sometimes they'll just tell you. So another way that I have seen this happen is after class, they'll just say, oh my gosh, that was such a great class. I feel so relaxed. I came out, you know, this is the 5:30 class. So I was really busy with work today and I feel so much better. I can go home to my kids and spouse today, like in a much better place. And then when you take that in, you're like, oh, thank you so much. You can actually type that up, send it to them in email and say, are you okay if I use this as a testimonial for my class or for my business, however you frame it? And people usually are like, yes, and here's some more. But if you ask them just to send you some text, the response rate is really low on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been my experience in the past, you know, like asking people to write a review after they leave. Like there's too many steps in there.
Yes. Yes. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So question number 3. Yes. Question number 3 is, where does your dream student hang out on and offline? So when you think about this, most people will say, okay, well, most people ask me, Amanda, how can I market my classes? And they usually think about Instagram. Like first and foremost, every yoga teacher wants to learn more about Instagram and use Instagram. But first I say, who is your dream student for your class? And then you have to make sure that they're on Instagram before you think Instagram is the place to be. Because you can like Instagram all day long and love that platform, but if your ideal student isn't there, it's not going to help if you use Instagram to market your class. So you have to know where they hang out online as well as offline. So most people will also forget about local coffee shops or bookstores or the library or schools or therapists, doctors. There's so many places that we don't hang out at a doctor's office, but that could be a referral source. But all of these places, like it doesn't only have to be online. So those would be the things. And so once you know who your student is and how they describe you, thinking, what are the top 3 ways I can reach my student? Maybe it's one social media platform, and then the other 2 are in person somehow. There's connections with local businesses, or it's your email list. It doesn't always have to be social media, although social media is so powerful. I don't want to steer anyone away from it, but it's usually the place everyone puts all the focus. And that's just way to stand out in this big world of online is really tough.
I've personally had a lot more success with in person, especially immediate success with in-person contact. Of course, I also really love talking to people, which I think makes a big difference. But yeah, I've always had a lot of success with in-person meetings, and then directing people back to social media. Like that's how we can kind of stay in touch. But it's always been more challenging for me to find people through social media. I don't know, but I also really love the thought of connecting and forming partnerships with doctors' offices or therapists or chiropractors. Like that's invaluable. There's a lot of people there, you know?
Yeah, it's huge. And when someone is already utilizing some type of health professional, there's a trust there. Typically, if they're still going to that doctor, if they're using that chiropractor, the list can go on, therapist for sure, that there's this trust that's built in. So if they refer someone, they are just automatically going to trust you because of that trust that's already been created. So it's an amazing like relationship builder really quickly too.
Yeah. Yeah. And even, I mean, the other students in your yoga classes, they're your ideal students. So even just trying to talk to them and letting them know, hey, we're trying to build this and you could do maybe this always wouldn't work, but referral programs or something like that can always be a way to fill classes, or your workshops. I've met teachers who are putting on a workshop and they haven't once mentioned that workshop in their classes. And I'm like, that's like full of your students. Like that's perfect for you to like mention that you're doing a workshop to them and let them know, you know? So yeah, those in person I think are really important.
It really is, but they're often so easily forgotten because we are just tend to think about social media first and foremost, and it stays at the top of our brain so often. And again, it does have a place. I would hate for anyone to feel like they should not do any social media marketing at all, but it's just usually put too heavy on the emphasis for sure.
One of the things I've really enjoyed working with you, Amanda, is that we talk about marketing in a way that doesn't feel creepy and gross like selling. You know, I feel like as yoga teachers, it can be hard to sell things and talk about money. And I think you actually had a post about this that I was like, amen. But it was something to the tune of like, you know what, we don't have to sell things as yoga teachers. We're sharing our passion, and we just have to let people know about what we're passionate about. And that alone is marketing, but narrowing it down is what can fill those classes faster. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
It's true. Yeah, I would love to, because I think it's so important to think about a few things. Number one, it's sharing, not selling. And that has resonated so well with yoga teachers that I've worked with. And I love that, because I actually think it's a disservice if you, the yoga teacher listening, does not share your passion and your gift with your students, especially your dream student who would transform their life with your yoga class. Like, it's such a disservice. And I just can't get, like, I can't say it enough. And my heart just like can't put it out into the world enough. But it's so true. So I'm glad that resonated with you. And Allison, you've heard me say this a lot, but it's just inviting people to the party, because you can be the best yoga teacher in the world. You can have the best sequence planned for your class, and you just know it is going to just change lives. It's going to rock everyone's world. It's going to be amazing. But if you don't invite anyone, no one is showing up, and you are all alone in the studio or in the room. You are by yourself, and no one gets to experience that. So you have to invite people to the party.
Yeah, I love that. And I love thinking of it as a party. I'm not selling things at a party. So why should I feel creepy or icky, I guess, selling, like inviting people to a yoga party, you know? So
It's true. And there's so many things. I mean, we don't shy away from telling people about a really cool restaurant, right? We're not like shy about saying like, oh my gosh, I just went to this restaurant the other day. It's so good. You've got to try it. So we don't shy away from doing that. There is an element of like, I'm inviting them to something that I'm going to earn money with. So that's usually where the discomfort comes in. But when it comes down to everything, like every person here, unless you have a money tree in your backyard, and if you do, please invite me to your house. Unless you have a money tree in your backyard, you have to earn money in order to live. You have to. Like it is just part of it. So my thing is, why not earn money doing something that you love and that helps other people, which is teaching yoga. And so if you don't earn money doing that, you have to earn it another way, which takes away from teaching yoga. And the super awesome thing is the more money you make teaching yoga, the more you can give for free or give to foundations. All of that. Like I want yoga teachers to make all the money in the world because they just want to help people. So they want to give to foundations. They want to have free yoga classes, all of this. So I want yoga teachers to make all the money.
I'm okay with that.
You're not going to get many arguments on that.
Right?
About that.
No.
But you know, all joking aside, I feel like there is that stigma, and we've talked about this before. You know, the idea that we should charge what our classes are worth, and you know, building that, building all of that community around that support of the yoga teacher, so that they can live, so they can survive and continue to offer their unique, amazing, special offerings and gifts to their community. And if they can't survive and have their basic needs met, then you can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
So I think it's just such an important thing that I've seen teachers who are really shy about that idea. I've had people, and I've talked about this on this forum before, that have interviewed for me and never asked me how much they would get paid. I'm always really shocked about that. I'm like, well, let me tell you, like I tell them, but I'm always shocked that that's not a question that would be asking, because it feels like uncomfortable to ask about that because we're talking about yoga, but this is like a job. So
yes. It's so true. And I think there's not enough of us that can be talking about it because it is so uncomfortable to think about it. And I think it's like extra layered on. Like I think talking about money is in general uncomfortable for most people. Not everyone, but most people have like that layer of, I'm not going to ask someone how much they make in a year. Like I'm not going to ask that question. But then it's added on in the yoga world, because there's someone somewhere along the line said that yoga should be free. And here's the deal. Yoga can be free, but the space to have the yoga class is not free. The props are not free, and your time is not free. So that's where I say is like all of that, like you just knowing that value. And I think also not attaching your self-value to that number is really important as well. And that usually resonates really high with yoga teachers too. And Shauna, I love what you said. Like if yoga teachers can't survive, they have to do something else and not teach yoga. And I say even more than survive. Like I want you on vacation. Like I don't want the basic level met. I want you to be so happy that you want to keep teaching yoga. So I think, you know, planning for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of vacation, like in all of the times I talk about money, I talk about budgeting that in. Like I want you to have paid vacation, because it hurts my heart when I hear yoga teachers say like paid vacation, like yoga teachers don't have that. I'm like, oh girl, you can work your budget that way. Yes, you can. And you can pay yourself on that week that you're on vacation, if you just think about shifting things and just thinking about it a little bit differently. So I'm glad we're talking about money.
And talk budgeting and money with us.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's a huge topic that could be for sure. But I think it can be a real struggle to figure out how to prioritize those things. And like see when you're making a workshop, how that funding can funnel through to support you for a longer period of time. And I mean, a lot of that comes down to some basic budgeting, but it can be really tricky because you have these kind of ups and downs, and sometimes there's a lot coming in, sometimes there's nothing coming in.
Oh yeah, I love it so much because I say this all the time, like I taught myself. I didn't go to school to learn how to budget. That wasn't something that I didn't go to business school, so I had to not only figure it out for my personal budget, but then I started a business. Oh my gosh, like that was a wake up call in the budgeting world. And while I don't actively teach yoga classes, running an online business is very up and down. So it's really similar in terms of, okay, you have a workshop and you've got this chunk of money that can last a little bit longer if you plan for it. And yes, so I'm happy to talk money all the time because I had to learn. So it started as an uncomfortable topic for me at the beginning, and now I talk about it all the time. There's not too much that I won't talk about with money.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back for that conversation. So
yeah.
I think this was incredible. I mean, I love those 3 questions. So really narrowing down to fill your yoga classes, to fill your workshops, to fill your teacher trainings, whatever it is, identify your niche, your ideal student or your dream student, figure out, ask them what they really love about your class to help you with your messaging, and then identify where they hang out. And then I guess from there, would you recommend, social media posting, flyers? What do you do once you have that information, real briefly?
Yeah. So once you know where they hang out, then I would say pick those top 3 places. I say 3, maybe it's 4. That's not like a hard rule or anything, but only a few. Don't try to reach all the places that they are. It is much better to saturate a few markets than it is to be kind of mediocre in too many. So if it's one social media platform, a few in person, and always, always, always use what you already have. So the classes if you're trying to fill a workshop and you don't talk about it in your classes, then that would be number 1. If you're trying to fill your classes and you have 3 consistent students, ask them to invite more people to that class because they have friends that they can invite and they'll be your champion. So I would say just pick a few places and just talk about it. Invite people.
Okay, perfect. I think that's great.
Yay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So Amanda has this amazing guide to really narrowing down your niche and figuring out who your ideal audience is. So I'm going to make sure that I post that in the comments here. So that way you can download that free guide and you can start, really working on defining your ideal audience. So that way you can start filling up those yoga classes. That's great.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes. Thank you so much, Amanda. It was great to see you.
Yes.
And Shauna, always lovely to see you too.
Always lovely to see you, Allison. Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.